All right, Friday, 10/02, 54 seconds, year 2023, 7th month, July, and the 14th day. And man, I had too many bike rides 2 days in a row to go visit Federal. I had to go visit Federal in Eugene, Oregon. That'd be the federal office. and I had to go see the iris, the eye, the all-seeing eye. The federal office, the Federal. Hey, what's up, Federal? What's happening, Federal? Federal. Hey, Federal. and I went fast. I wanted to ride fast this time. I've been having a nice, riding nice and slow, getting a nice pace, and this time I wanted to allow the self to go fast. And because I noticed the hips weren't hurting. But fuck, man, 2 days in a row, riding somewhat fast, all of a sudden the hips are hurting. So obviously the body was not ready. So I'll go back to slow riding. But the first day, because there was a freaking appointment, I didn't want to be late for the appointment. And then when I got there, she told me, she said, I didn't need no appointment. I didn't need no appointment for what I wanted to accomplish while I was there, which was hand to hand. I wanted to hand her the tax return for 2019. So, but then I told her, I said, I got 20, 21, and 22. Mrs. Magistrale. And then she gave me her number, employee number, whatever, Mrs. Magistrale. And she was all giggly and happy with me and all this stuff, especially when she started seeing the lien number. She saw the lien number on the signature. She said, what's this? And so I said, well, I pulled out the state ID and I said, the IDs match. There's a signature and the lien number. She's all kind of like questioning, and then she realized, yeah. But then after that, she was all titillated and happy throughout all the rest of the time we were there having, conducting business. She went from kind of stern to all of a sudden just happy as a lark for some reason. So, but knowing that she's also, just as I am, robot controlled to certain levels, and this and that. I'm thinking that the little guy inside. But God, man, that brings me to. I started thinking. I haven't handed in any taxes since the year 2010, 2009, around there. 2010, yeah, I remember 2010. Yeah, that was the last year that I handed in, because the state went in and garnished the when I got a job over here, the state went in and garnished to get their $250 that they said I owed them. But anyway, so that's another story. But anyway, since 2010, so that's 11, 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 8 years that I did not hand in any taxes. 8 years, because I had no public job. No public job whatsoever. So, and when I was selling stuff on eBay and Craigslist, I mean, it was just odd stuff here and there. It wasn't a business. I wasn't bringing in, heavy amounts of money. There's just a little bit to get a little piece of bread here and there, or an internet, get an internet connection, I guess, here and there, until this and that. But anyway, so there was no reason. And I talked to her. She says. I talked to her on handing in tax. Well, according to them, they call it a tax return. So on her part, it's a tax return. To me, I call it something different. It's a pacification. It's a pacifier. Anything that's attached to any bill, fines, levies, liens, taxes, whatever they want to call it, jurisdiction, assumed jurisdiction, jail time, prison. It's all just a pacifier. I'm just pacifying them until there's some growing up, and there doesn't need to be a pacifier anymore in the mouth, which is just artificial for a nipple. But but then I get to the real stuff. But for the most part, the way the system functions, it took pulled me away. So here, I'm just going to say it to me. I was pulled away from the breast for breastfeeding, and that's what Mother told me. She said her mother talked her into it. She said her mother talked her into pulling me off breastfeeding, pulled me off, and then shoved a bottle in my mouth which is nothing but a plastic nipple. And also, with the plastic nipple comes the plastic pacifiers. So for me to pacify the quote unquote the child that's running the system, the abusive mudstuck system, it's a very appropriate word to use, because there still has to be some type of something there, even though it be artificial. But the reason I say pacifier is because that's what the child is used to implementing anyway. So I just give them I'll just give the child what the child is used to implementing. It's kind of like holding a mirror up to their face. Seeing how you put me on a plastic nipple that that cow's milk that totally isn't even compatible with the the body that I live in, although it's somewhat it gets something. There is something in it, but it's not full natural. So I just give them what they're used to. So it really isn't out of line to say I just pacify the tax collector. I pacify the guys at the top, the Vatican, the bill guys, until there's growth on their part to where they show me some honor, especially for the story that I wrote, which is backed through hand to hand, and I handed the registered mail affidavit in, and then they handed it up hand to hand. That's the handoff, But so I say I just pacify them. So anyway, I'm saying all this because there's a point that I want to get to, and let me just say the point right now. See, now if I slow down, I relax more, and I just, kind of just breathe, then really the things that I want to say, they really start to become clear in the thoughts and vibrate through the body, and it comes out real relaxed just like that. I don't have to sit here and struggle with the words for the most part, which is, it happens. Sit here struggling with things. Being in a rush, in a hurry for a red light, so to speak, Being in a rush and there's a red light on this camera thing as I'm looking at it. So anyway, let me see if I can, nothing with this let stuff. I shall purposely enter into the Zen mode and calm down with this video right here, right on camera. It's as though I'm having a hit of cannabis, and it's just totally relaxed and everything going on with me. Except I'll just breathe in natural air. And this is called a breathing technique. Now, one of the breathing techniques I learned on YouTube, it's from this guy called Wim Hof. He's known as the Iceman. And he said his teaching goes like this: 30 quick breaths in, and then on the 30th breath, to hold that breath as long as it can be held before breathing it out. And I have implemented this technique, and I have had vast experience with it, enough to know that there's something to it. It's like hyperventilating, because the body starts getting lightheaded, and and then it kind of wants to fall over a little bit, but you know, it in a way, it's kind of like, it seems like to me from information that I heard, that it's a harmful thing to the body, and that it cuts oxygen supply off going to the brain, and then that's what causes the lightheadedness, where the body wants to kind of fall over and whatnot. But, and I know this because I've hyperventilated before. In fact, when I was young, teenager, you know, I had a friend, and he had a brother, and an older brother, and he pretty much taught me how to hyperventilate by putting the hands around the sides of the neck and just squeeze until the body faints or becomes lightheaded. I didn't faint, but I could almost fall over because the body would become lightheaded. So, you know, to me, the years later on, I realized what's probably going on is the circulation, the oxygen is being cut off from the brain. But when he explains what's going on with the body, I realize there's something different going on between hyperventilating, which would be putting squeezing the oxygen off to the brain, and then quick breaths, 30 quick breaths, which he says, now this is just what he says, and then of course I had the self-experience. So here I am, I'm talking upon two different subjects now. I got two different subjects going in this video. The first one is taxes. And then the sub-subject to that is pacifying. And then I went on to a different thing. I've got two subjects going, and one's a sub-subject to the main subject. A point to, you know, an offshoot, a side road. While I'm traveling down the certain, you know, interstates or freeways or pathways, or, you know, so I'm talking on breathing now. Relaxing. Relaxing. How to get into the Zen mode. Because I realized as I was, you know, putting forth the video, that I was feeling tense. Too much muscle tension in the body from being anxious and in a hurry, which is neurotic. The rat reel syndrome. It's the slave job. Looking for a more wonderful word that I can be more appropriate. But the body is this body and these thoughts. When I was growing up, when I was born, I was automatically born to a slave system as a slave, right off the bat. And this all ties into what's called federal. It ties right into the taxes. I've learned that all subjects, they all tie in together. They're all little puzzle pieces that tie into the one main big picture. So that's why every subject that I speak upon, I see how it interconnects. And that's what totally just the brother. Whenever I start talking like this in front of the brother, the soul in him doesn't get irritated. The robot connected to the extraterrestrial all the way through the federal levels, the military levels that surveil everything, they're the ones that get offended. But it's really the child in them that's mind controlling the brother Jason, and speaking through him. And then as they're speaking through him, they're hoping that I'll momentarily forget that they're the ones that are speaking, and that I'll blame Jason, the little soul, and then I'll start a fight with him, start an argument. I'm talking about a violent argument. I ain't talking a nice, relaxed, you know, wonderful argument that's, you know, I'm talking, they're the bully child that's running the system is hoping to get me to get violent with Jason. And it's anyone else that I'm talking to out in the towns or anywhere with the neighbors or anything. I realize what's going on. And not only that I realize it, I've got much training in it that I'm conscious with it all the time instead of being caught off guard with it. And next thing you know, a fight has already started, and then I realize, oh shit, I see what just happened. I fell for it. I fell for it. I fell right in. And then at that point, then I have to pull the self out of it. And sometimes that's hard as fuck to pull the self out of a drop dead war that's already started. Just a drop dead war. That shit is some fucking hard shit. and I know it's so fucking hard. I know what the pride and ego is like. It's so fucking hard. That's why I put a lot of energy into avoiding that. And that's what I call fire squirting. So this gets you all into the fire marshal information and what fires are and what they represent. The fire subject. It all ties in, pieces of the puzzles. A fully trained, but now out in the public they call it being a fully trained firefighter. I call it being a fully trained fire squirter. How to put out relationship fires. How to put out conversation fires. How to put out interaction fires between other living organisms. How to nip that stuff right in the bud and to put it out quick. But if it's really blazing and torching and it's hot and it's turned into a 5,000 acre fire and it's just got fuel to burn. There's just dry stuff all over the ground and the wind picks up. Oh my God, it could turn into a raging inferno that's gonna be a while to get that thing out. So it's the same thing with me. In conversations or interaction and relationships with other living organisms, whether it be brothers, sisters, neighbors, dogs, cats, squirrels, everything that's living. That includes air, breathing air, toxic air, earthquake, dirt, poison food. To me, these are all relationships. Interacting with the wasps, the bumblebees, the ants, So, anyway, so now that I can feel the self kind of getting into the Zen mode, kind of relaxed mode. Now, a lot of thing with me is whenever I start speaking into this radio or this camera or just speaking into the air, period, I know that there's other ears listening. I know. And this gets me into the subject called shyness. I was when I grew up, I was very shy as far as consciousness goes. Mother said when I was younger, or mother told me when I was young, she said I was a monster, and I don't ever remember ever being a monster. I don't ever. It's not even in the memory, which brings me to punishment trauma. And the only thing I can think is from age 1 to age 3, I was severely traumatized with punishment to where it's all blacked out in the memory. And, see, when I was young anyway, and this I'll go ahead and say and start including other people. I'd go on YouTube and I'd listen to a bunch of people talk on what happened in their childhoods. So I had to study how to be a child therapist. I studied to be a child therapist. Although, I don't call it a child therapist. To me, it's just, being conscious to what's going on. So I'm learning what's going on with a lot of these testimonials. All kinds of YouTubers, especially this one YouTuber called Teal. And she says, when children are severely, beaten or punished, they go into a shell mode, a very highly protective mode, whether they're conscious or not, because being young, the memories just, it's not there. From age 1 to age 3 for most people. Now, I'm just saying, I'm not going to be speaking for people here when I say that. I'm just sharing what the testimonies are. And I have self-experience, because when I go back to age 1 to 3, I have no memory. None. But I can kind of remember one memory, two or three memories, and they're just quick flashes of living in this house in Los Angeles. That would be the first house that Dad bought. Which Dad told me, he says he worked 2 fucking jobs for that house. He worked. Not only he'd get up at 4:30 every morning, go to Safeway and work. Then he'd come home for an hour and a half, and then he'd go work another job, Baker Oil Tools. And, it sounded like the last time I talked to him, 6 to 8 hours a day. So he was 16 hours a day. And I said, how long did you keep that? I'm wondering how long you kept that up for, Dad. He said, he started telling me, and I said, oh, it sounds like 1 or 2 years. So it wasn't that long. But that's how they got that house. And he also said this. He said that Mother's dad loaned him, back then, he said it was $500 to put a down payment on that house in Los Angeles, California. In today's time, it'd probably be around $5,000. And that's a lot of money. But anyway, so Dad worked, for the first couple years, pretty much, 2 jobs. So he was not at home a lot. Now that I say that, I can start to see. He was not at home a lot. And so that gave Mother free rein to just smack the fuck out of me. Whatever it was she did to punish me, that she said I was a monster. She said I was just uncontrollable. She said she was afraid to take me out in public. And she didn't. She said she kept me at home. So I was not socialized at all. But I'm saying for the years that I don't remember, that's probably from around age 1 to 3. So I was traumatized. That's the same as post-traumatic syndrome, PTSD, what's going on in the military. It's all the same thing. Throw someone in an atmosphere they've never been in, a violent atmosphere they've never been in before, post-traumatic syndrome. And, thanks, so the stories go. I imagine it's the same thing. It's trauma, post-traumatic syndrome, trauma. So anyway, so I really don't have much memory being punished. And of course, and what I'm thinking is the thoughts that's, kind of sifting around in the body actions, kind of, reverberating a vibration together. I'm thinking, no way that Mother would be that way. And I'm thinking, how could she be that way? I'm trying to justify everything and kind of deny it and think, she seems like kind of a fairly nice person to me when I was, individual, We ended up being close growing up and shit. And the only thing that really drawed us close was that Jesus thing. That was really the only bond that we had, and probably music, because she was. But we didn't really get together for music much. But it's a natural magnetic attraction in the blood. She's musical. I was musical. She's the one that had the piano in the house. Which gets me to another story I want to tell. When we went to the store, I remember, this is probably around age 4 or 5. I was able to jump around in the car or whatnot. So all 3 of us children are in this car, and it's parked on a long gravel hill. But there's the parking lot. But to get up to the music store or the piano store, it was a long driveway. Probably half as long as this gravel road out here in front of the house, and it steeped down probably a good degree. But up at the top it was flat, but it wasn't quite flat. It was enough for the car. When the brother and sister were in the front seat, they were wrestling, they knocked the shifter out of this car and it went in neutral and it started rolling back. And the first thing I did was jump out the window. Here I was, 5-year-old. I wasn't thinking of no one else. I didn't know how to stop the car. If I would have been trained, I would just put on the brake and put it in park. I didn't know nothing. I didn't think to save the brother or sister. First thing that came out of me was escape, because I sensed imminent danger. It was all instinct. I jumped right out the window. Next thing you know, I saw Dad running down that driveway after the car, full speed. It's rolling down the hill going toward the street. Where there's, it wasn't much traffic though, because this was out in the boonies. This piano store was out in the boonies, so there wasn't much traffic. But I have their memory. Dad running full speed down there, and he didn't get into the car before just before it hit the street. For some reason, he caught that fucking car and got in. and it was still rolling when he was in. But then it slowed down just as it got to the street, and onto the street, it got to a full stop. And it did not go to the other side of the street at all. It was just right in the middle of the street. He stopped it. But anyway, that's a little side note that I want to get on the record. And, because I like to watch these YouTube videos, because to me it's like, in today's time, people would call it a diary. Except I'm not writing it down. It's an audio diary. But I don't call it a diary. I just call it, memories. Memories. Some people call it a memoir. Well, the word die and the word war is connected psychologically and hardwired into the brain, and is keeping me expecting and unconsciously expecting to live a certain way, with death and war all the time, dying and war. So I like to reprogram the brain with something different rather than what I was brought up, reprogram with the brain. But anyway, I said that little side story because Mother. The only thing we really had in common was the Bible, the Jesus thing, and we both had music in the blood. Both had music in the blood. And she would be playing piano in the house when I was young. And this is the house in Kansas. And so, I was naturally gravitated. I just went up to the piano and started playing on it. Just started pressing notes and getting used to I remember the first song I was able to pick out was Mary Had a Little Lamb. And no one taught me. Mother didn't teach me nothing. It was just all with the sound. I could figure it out through sound. I hit a note and it sounded a certain way. And if I knew in the brain how a melody went and what it sounded like, I could just sit there and play and hit wrong notes and right notes until I got it. It's just natural. So that was the beginning journey for me in reality with music right there. Mother. It was the motherly connection. So, But anyway, so So, in getting back to Federal, I had to bike ride the last couple days, which the hips are sore. The hips are sore from bike riding, and I allowed the self to ride fast because I was over here. I was getting into putting together this roofing thing. That's really the main reason why I got this recording going, because I like to record all the different steps as a record. Put it on the record. To have videos that I can watch of what went on. It isn't no different, when I was a kid and growing up, I had eventually heard that, they call them families back then. Families, but, I know a family is connected to the word famine. All these families out here are really living a starvation lifestyle. That's why it's called family. Because secretly, behind the scenes, is connected to famine. Because all kinds of things are withheld from, especially slave families. But anyway, so if I call it a family, I'm thinking family. But I really like to call it something different. And I have started training myself to call it something different, like a tribe or a clan or just, whatever word I want to call it. I call it anything I want, but, just for, shits and giggles sake, Anyway, so back in the old days, they'd have these projectors, and I would, even growing up on television, there it is. That's probably where I saw it. Television shows, and they'd show mom and dad bringing out the old projector, or grandpa bringing out the old projector, and there'd be a screen on the wall, and the old reel-to-reel projectors or whatever how it was, because that's how Hollywood started, was reel-to-reel. And so, which is military technology. In its heyday, when technology first comes out, it's high-level military technology until it becomes popular, word gets around, and then it gets, becomes old technology, old technology, and then it's funneled out to the public to be sold on a shelf to get some more money system to support the fake assumed jurisdiction money system. I can see how it all ties right in. It all ties right in. So anyway, I'm 30 minutes into this video, and I am just all over something. I'm saying all this stuff because it's probably wanting to go somewhere with it. So I'm just flowing with it. Anyway, let me see if I can get a little break here, because I've been wanting to keep these things 20 minutes videos and then go on 20-minute break, and then another 20-minute video and another 20-minute break. But like I said, all the anxiety that I was raised with, all the anxiety that enters in and into the thoughts and in the muscles. I mean, God, that stuff is so fucking strong within me. I feel it, and as much as I've been training to train out of it and become more relaxed with everything, God, man, I can see there's a long way to go for me still. A long way to go. But to have a consistent, relaxed, just not in a rush, not in a hurry, not having to feel like, I have to explain anything. Because that's really, even now as I'm starting to say it, and I want to cut the video, but God, I'm onto something. I'm really onto something. This is, because every time I start talking, all of a sudden I'll hit new points too. But I'm onto something. Now it just slipped the brain. Now that I said that, God, I was onto something. that thought and the body action together came in, and it was new. But let me just shut this off and I'll get to it later. Whoops.